Hi everyone, it's Patrick Wong here from PDF Careers here. Hope you're well. Today for our chat, I've got Oliver Blain with me, and we're going to discuss what leaders look for in effective team members and I guess the leadership aspect in general. How are you today, Oliver?
Hey, Patrick. Thank you very much for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you for that. So before we begin, if you don't mind, would you mind just, I guess, introducing yourself briefly and talk about, because obviously you've worked in, Telstra for 18 plus years, and I think in your last role you were the Director of New South Wales Government and Enterprise Accounts. So, you've got great content and I'm sure experience as well.
No, look, thanks, Patrick. I appreciate it. Yes, you're right. 18 years at Telstra. Officially, I'm a lawyer by training, and I did have a long legal career at Telstra, but then unusually, I transitioned out of a legal career into a sales career and spent the last 5 years here leading sales teams in Telstra. Most recently, before I left, I ran the New South Wales government and enterprise teams, so covering the whole of business, government, enterprise customers within New South Wales. I left Telstra last year, and I've been consulting, a bit of freelancing, and otherwise enjoying myself the last 18 months.
Nice. Not the, I guess in good and bad, not the worst time to have a bit of a break when there's, I guess for certain areas, there's not a lot we can do anyway, apart from just rest up.
No, look, it made homeschooling a lot easier indeed. But it's also interesting in terms of our topic today. I think a lot of the COVID changes and the way the world has changed rapidly really bring into sharp focus issues around leadership. And, when times are tough, you need to actually really hone your leadership skills, because that's when you really need to rely upon them.
Okay. And in regards to that, then what in terms of leadership, what type of traits do you think that, leaders would need to portray in these current situations to, make it kind of stand out and obviously help the rest of the team?
And look, I guess it's very important at these times. It's pretty important at all times, though. For me, leadership is, and it's pretty obvious, but it's really about showing the way for the team. So it's having a clear plan and then being able to communicate that plan. So you need to be very clear in the way you explain what you want the team to do, very clear why they would want to follow you. And you do that, you need to be open, you need to have integrity, you need to be approachable, but you also need to be visionary. You need to be able to show them there's a reason why they want to go along with you.
Yeah, that's right. I guess bring people on the journey with them and enable and, empower people rather than, I guess, dictate and micromanage in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if people get nervous about circumstances, they need reassurance. And you don't want to be reassured by giving platitudes. You want to know that what you're doing is worthwhile, and you'll get through all of this together.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. And I guess on the flip side then, so, and this is what I'm really keen to get your thoughts on is, what type of characteristics and traits do you associate with people that you look to, I guess, either, promote into leadership roles or you see as, future leaders?
Absolutely. I think it's a sort of a key point, because people are never quite sure what's going to be focused on and where they're at. I think the first point is you're always going to look to promote people who are visible and have confidence. And by that, I mean people who are comfortable in what they're doing and where they're going, and that are able to, as I said before, communicate clearly and also have a vision for people to follow along with. It's important to have a plan, I guess. You want to make sure that when you're looking with and working with people, it's someone who has a plan and they know where they're going, whether that's a plan for their own portfolio, for their own piece, or even for their career. But you want someone who understands the circumstances and where they're going. A necessary one will always be their ability to engage with people. Anyone who's going to be a leader needs to be able to relate to their team and know where they're going. So simply being good at the job in hand often isn't going to make you a good leader. And in fact, one of the obvious criteria you think would make someone right for a promotion would be their results. But of course, sometimes the people who are best at getting the numbers or getting the results aren't always going to make the right leader. So it's getting that balance between the two to say, is the person who can do the work also the person who can lead the team? And ironically, I've seen plenty of good leaders emerge who weren't very good at the job, but they were good at people, good at communicating, good at organizing things, and really to get all the nonsense out of the way to allow the people who are good at the job to do what they're really good at.
Yeah, I guess if an analogy would be, obviously, we're both NRL fans. Unfortunately, you're a Canberra Raiders supporter, but, I won't hold that against you. But, obviously you've got, Jack Whiten, who was voted the best player in the NRL, but, he might not necessarily be the captain, which is obviously Jared Croker.
No, indeed. And I think you're right. If you really look at sporting teams generally, the captain tends to be the person who's experienced, knows what's going on, has been there before and can help the team get through and provide sort of some wise counsel. Often the best player is tempestuous, unpredictable, not sure what's going to happen. They really make, they make a difference, but they aren't necessarily the right person to help everyone else get through what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because me being also in the sales environment for the last 10 years, often a lot of the best performers would kind of get pushed into management and leadership roles. But sometimes what I've seen is that they weren't, or like you said, they weren't the best leaders, or they didn't have that motivation or interest into being a leader, but they kind of got pushed into and kind of had to manage, accordingly, when, there was maybe other people that could have stepped up or, shown those qualities.
Exactly. Let me not say there's not a correlation. Plenty of people who are very good at the job are also very good at leading the team. But I think it's important to recognize that just because someone's good at doing what they're doing doesn't mean that they will make a good leader. You look for the other qualities around their personality, their ability to relate to other people, the level of their vision, etc.
Yeah. Okay. And in regards to, I guess, and look, when I'm constantly talking to candidates on the market, and you ask them about their future plans, like, their 3-year, their 5-year plan, all that above, right? More often than not, a lot of them go, yep, so I want to go here, I want to go here, and then I want to move into management. I want to move into leadership. And it's really interesting, right? Because sometimes I think there's quite a big gap sometimes with that, them saying it and they're not actually portraying or, maybe having experience. But, and obviously this is a bit of a general sort of question, but, for people that want to improve their chances into getting the leadership and management roles, and they're not in those roles yet, is there any advice that you could give them that they could work on? Or, is there any like sort of courses or anything like that you'd recommend where, they can improve their chances into moving in those positions?
Yeah, sure. And I think at the beginning of all of our careers, myself included, I think we often want to get promoted because it feels like it's an important thing to do. Often there's more money associated with it, so that's very attractive. But I think often people, I want to be in charge because I want to be in charge. And that kind of misses the fundamental point of why we actually have managers within businesses. And I think you need someone there to actually lead, as we've said, but also to make a difference. And I think the key lesson I had about moving from doing roles into management roles is, what difference are you going to make to the team? What's the unique skill set, perspective, or otherwise that you bring that means the team will be better off with you in charge? So if your desire for promotion is merely about recognition about how great you are, more money, or because you deserve it, then you're always going to miss the point that management and leadership is very much around putting the right person in to take the team somewhere. So of course, as you can obviously see where I'm going with this, if you want to move forward into a management role, you need to consider, what is it that you do really well relative to others in relation to team leadership and team management? And then how are you going to be able to promote that skill set, develop that skill set, and really think about where you contribute, where your contribution is going to be and how you contribute to the team.
That is a very good point. And I guess adding on to that, I guess if there's areas that you can identify that you're maybe not so good at, those are potentially areas that you'd work on to, put yourself in a position to, because I think, and the advice I've always been given is you kind of, you want to act like you're in that role that you're looking to get promoted into. So when, hopefully you do get promoted, it's kind of like you've shown some experience and, you can kind of do it, as opposed to getting promoted and then learning it as you go along.
Yeah, certainly. And there's always going to be a couple here of confidence, which is confidence that you can do the role, even if you're not quite sure what it entails, but also some sort of ability and demonstration of ability to be able to do the role. It's a very hard thing to demonstrate, but leaders don't need to be managers. Just because you're leading a function doesn't mean you have to be controlling the people who are underneath you. So you can always exercise your leadership skills in everyday circumstances to sort of show, how would you do it? How do you role model to others? How's the best way of going about things? And that kind of process. So it's a hard thing to see and do, but you can practice that as you go. You also mentioned, how do you find what your blockers or your inhibitors? And the best leaders are people who are prepared to concede that they don't know everything and that they can improve. And how do you find out, the things that hold you back in your role, and then try and address those, or at the very least be aware of them, and then have tricks up your sleeve as to how do you get around it whenever that comes up.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point, right? I guess that, and in that case, would be, getting feedback from your peers, from your current leaders to identify. And you're right, it takes a certain type of person that's happy to, I guess, learn and maybe hear about things they may not want to hear, but for the greater good and for their, I guess, their progression. That's something you have to do. I think in terms of learning where you need to improve on.
Exactly. It's easy to talk about the stuff you do well. It's much harder to talk about things you don't do well. But the biggest shifts and changes we'll see in people's performance is usually addressing the things they don't do well. So yeah, seeking feedback, not being needy and really asking, really begging for it, but seeking feedback and being prepared to consider what are the negative things you need to address will always make you better. And of course, if someone's seen to be open to that feedback and make changes, you're going to be more inclined to think about them as leadership potential, because they're listening to you as well. They're listening and responding to your own leadership.
Yeah, definitely. And in regards to another area that we were talking about, I think just prior to it, and I'll lead on to it. But there's I guess there's a lot of people, and look, I'm going to say this, predominantly more than not, there's the Asian demographic. We've always been taught to be, sort of humble and, kind of not talk about our performances or our work. So you'll get a lot of, and obviously there's just people in general, but you'll get a lot of people that are hardworking and, put their heads down, do the work, don't really create much noise, but yet they don't promote themselves as much, as opposed to, maybe some others that might promote themselves a bit more, and then they get recognized and they get noticed. I guess, what's your take on that, or advice to people that, might be, just focusing on, just working and doing the job, but not really doing much else?
Sure. So the first thing to recognize probably is I never realized that I had an Asian approach to the way that I did things, in that I'm the same. Often I think working hard and expecting people to recognize what you're doing. Now, there's a balance here, like all things in life. If you work hard and don't say anything about it and don't really demonstrate it and have people understand that, then of course more fool you for not telling people what's going on. You need to be able to have a certain level of visibility. So I said this at the outset, what do you look for in a team member? You look for confidence and visibility. So you have to be confident to be able to talk about what you can and can't do, and visible in the way that you're going about that. So you've got to tell people. It's important that people know what you're doing. That's also how you build a level of trust, that if you don't tell them what they're doing, then often the assumption is you're doing the wrong things. So you've got to get that level up. But, and the thing that I can't stand is the people who go too far and spend the whole time telling the boss, telling someone else what they're doing, how fabulous they are, how hard they worked, how, it was all up to them. They did the right thing. For want of a better expression, the ass kisses, and then, them being recognized. Integrity is one of the sort of the qualities that I value the most. And that lacks integrity if you're taking credit for other things you haven't done, or blowing up the size of your actual achievements to make them sound bigger than they are. So it's about taking it to the right level and having people understand who you are and what you stand for, but not going too far and making it sound like it's terrible. If you have a leader that's promoting people who are going too far, then you probably don't want to be in that business, because the leader doesn't really understand either. Understand what's going on at the business level and really respect that.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. I think, there's that fine line between, being confident of what you're saying and then getting overconfident, getting, and perceived as being cocky or bragging about what you do, which is kind of not the area you want to be in.
No, indeed. And I think what happens is those people, when they are cocky or bragging and they do get promoted as a consequence because the leader above doesn't quite recognize it, all of their peers don't like them and respect them. They don't achieve good results because they think the person who was loudest and the person who promoted themselves got the job, not the people who did the work. So why would the team support them in the circumstances? If you're going to be a leader, you've got to take the team with you. Sometimes that's very hard and difficult. If you're downsizing, you're making change, and you need to work very hard. It's not always going to be a happy times, but if you want the team to respect you and work with you, then they've got to be able to trust you and think that you're saying and doing and talking about their achievements, not as if they're your own achievements.
I think like a good leader, like any good leader, you'd like to bring people on that journey with them, and I guess talk about, I guess, the whole team as a whole, as opposed to a single sort of individual in that sense.
Look, team is important. I think the whole reason we work in teams is we know that the team achievement will always outstrip the individual achievement. So you want to make sure you recognize individuals within your team, but you also really need to recognize that the team is there. You're only as good often as the worst performer in your team. So focusing on them and improving them will make a big difference, rather than focusing on your great performers.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, look, look, thank you for your time. If I was to, I guess, quickly summarize, I guess, some of the key points that you've talked about in terms of what you're looking for in people, it's first and foremost, and this is something I think is really important, is that integrity. The fact that you can do what you do, and you're doing it for the right reasons. How you can, I guess, impact the business, add value to the organization, leading by example. I guess getting, I guess understanding where your strengths are, where your potentially not weaknesses, but areas to improve are. And then, how about you can go about to, improving them. And then I guess, having that fine level of, confidence to talk about, your achievements and what you've done and how you've added value, but not to the point where you're kind of overly compensating and overly bragging.
Yeah, Patrick, that's a great summary. I think that's right. They sound like simple things: acting with integrity, being honest, being confident about what you've done. But it's very easy to fall to the other side of each of those elements, to slightly overinflate or lie about what you're doing, or, go back on your word or your commitments because it's convenient at the time. But sticking to those things, I think, builds an overall career in a way in which you'll be proud about how you're achieving. So they're simple points, but they're really important, and it's important that they're lived every day.
Yeah, and I guess, would you say the fact that, testament to yourself, right? You've been, in the industry for quite a while, and you've been in leadership positions and senior leadership for quite a long time. Would those, I guess, be the things that you've adopted and incorporated throughout your career?
And absolutely. And some of those lessons I've learned the hard way, of course, about, trying to take the shortcut and realizing it actually wasn't a shortcut, or thinking about looking at the slightly dodgy deal that'll get me my numbers, but realizing that's not the person that I want to be or the team that I want to lead. We want to make sure we're better organized and driving better delivery. So absolutely, those things are really important to me: being approachable, having a really high level of integrity, having a plan, being thought of as a team as being someone, a member of the team, someone they can trust, but someone they also respect and do want to work hard for.
Yeah, and I think the way you've described that person, there's a lot of people in the industry I know like that, and unfortunately there are others maybe not. But I think that, yeah, you're right. The people that are like successful and the ones that are, that do well, they do share a lot of those qualities that you have described.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, and the higher you go, the more you have to demonstrate those qualities every day.
No, definitely, definitely. Look, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it, and I hope that was beneficial for everyone. Thanks, Oliver, and happy to get you on in the future and talk more a bit about other aspects, or anything else you'd like to talk about.
No, that'd be great, Patrick. I really appreciate you having me, and good luck, everyone. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thanks, Oliver.
Bye.